Breathe for a second, faithful, because today has that, wait, what just shifted feel to it. Like you can almost hear Levi's Stadium creaking from across the map. There's a name that could be back at exactly the right moment. But there's one catch tucked inside the fine print. There's a pass rush rumor that, if it ever turns into something real, will split this fan base right down the middle in the comments. And there's a little wrinkle Shanahan just used against Philly that might pop up again when nobody's expecting it. So I've got to ask you right out of the gate, which one of those clues has you checking your pulse? Because sometimes the simple update is the one that actually decides a season. He practiced, he might play. Sounds harmless. Then you zoom in and realize it's the difference between an offense breathing and an offense suffocating. That's where we are with Ricky Pearsall. The expectation is San Francisco will have Pearsall back for the first time since that Week 17 win over the Bears when they go to Seattle on Saturday in the divisional round. And the timing is everything, because the context got cruel in a hurry. George Kittle is out after suffering a torn Achilles last weekend. That's not just a tight end missing. That's your over-the-middle problem for defenses. That's your security blanket when a play breaks down. That's the guy who makes the red zone feel smaller for the opponent and bigger for you. Without Kittle, spacing tightens. The windows get stingier. And after what we watched 2 weeks ago, when this offense struggled to create separation in that Week 18 loss to the Seahawks, you don't have the luxury of leaving playmaking on the table. Pearsall's season has been the definition of stop and start. Knee and ankle injuries have hung around for most of the year, limiting him to 9 games after he played only 11 last season. Even with that, he's at 36 catches for 528 yards. It's not a stat line that screams headline machine, but it does point to chunk plays when he's right. Because when Pearsall has his legs under him, you feel the burst. You see the routes that actually force a defense to turn and run, not just sit and squat. Kyle Shanahan addressed it Thursday, and you could hear how careful he was being with the wording. Pearsall is still battling the knee, which is why he's officially listed as questionable. Shanahan basically said they're not going to slap some rigid snap count on a guy, especially not in the playoffs. But they also understand where Pearsall is physically, and that it probably has to look different than it would if he were truly 100%. And Pearsall sounded pretty confident he'll be out there. He said he's been in every practice this week, and he felt way better than last week. He even pointed out that if you really watched him last week, he couldn't lift his leg the right way. He was fighting through it. This week gave him more optimism, but he also admitted the part that makes fans nervous. It's lingering. It's one of those injuries that doesn't really go away until you get full rest. And obviously, that's not happening right now. That's the whole tension, isn't it? Pearsall's explosiveness is a major part of what makes him dangerous, especially against a strong Seahawks corner group. If that knee steals the suddenness, you're getting a version of Pearsall that can contribute, but maybe doesn't tilt the field. If he's close, though, if he can threaten vertically a handful of times, that alone changes the geometry. That alone makes Seattle hesitate before they clamp down on everything underneath. And think about how thin the margin is in this matchup. When Pearsall is on the field, the 49ers generate more explosive plays. It really is that simple. Without him, the offense can get bottled up, and Week 18 was the clearest example. We've also already seen what Pearsall can do against Seattle. Back in Week 1, he caught 4 passes for 108 yards in a 17-10 win. So no, it's not just another receiver coming back. It's a pressure point. It's a way to force the defense to defend the whole field, not just the parts they prefer. So I'll put it on you, faithful. Are you betting on Pearsall being a real difference maker on Saturday? Or are you worried that me turns him into a decoy and leaves the offense stuck, searching for answers again? Because if he can stress the defense even in short bursts, Shanahan can build a plan that breathes. If he can't, then we're talking about winning in a completely different way. And that's where the conversation shifts, fast, to the other side of the ball. You know where fans go when an offense feels tight. We start staring at the trenches and saying, fine, then go take the game away. Because nothing helps your own offense like a pass rush that doesn't let the other quarterback get comfortable. And every time the 49ers faithful start talking instant pass rush help, one name keeps floating back into the chat. Nothing here is confirmed. Not even close. But it's not coming out of nowhere either. Back on October 15th, 2025, ESPN insider Jeremy Fowler mentioned he expected the 49ers to check on edge rusher options on the market, and Gary was one of the names brought up. In that same note, the vibe was also pretty clear. Green Bay likely wouldn't be willing to move him. So it wasn't something's happening. It was more like they'll check because that's what they do. The reason it's getting fresh oxygen now is the cap conversation for 2026. The talk has shifted from trade, no chance, to what if this becomes a cap decision? A recent Packers-focused piece floated Gary as a potential 2026 cap casualty, pointing to a cap hit around $28 million and questioning cost versus impact. And you already know how this works. The second a big name is even mentioned in restructure or cut territory, the switch flips for Niners fans. Would John Lynch take a look? Would the front office pounce if the door cracks open? And I get why people latch onto it. Gary isn't some mystery flyer. He's the type of edge rusher who changes protections. He changes how offenses slide their line. He forces coordinators to call plays differently, especially on 3rd and long. And when you're in a win-now window, it's easy to see the storyline. One more guy who can wreck a pocket can be the difference between a playoff run that ends in frustration and one that keeps rolling. Now, the reality check. Even with the cap chatter, Gary is expensive and still a major piece. It's not automatic that he becomes available at all. If this ever became real, the most likely paths are pretty straightforward. A restructure to keep him in Green Bay, an exit move if the Packers decide they need to cut costs and the market opens, or a trade only if they truly decide the return is worth it. None of those are clean. None of those are guaranteed. So what can we actually say without reaching? There's real foundation for the conversation. ESPN did mention the 49ers checking on edge options including Gary, and now there's new fuel with the 2026 cap cut discussion. But for now, it stays in that lane. Rumor, possibility, being floated. And while we're all debating what Lynch should or shouldn't do from our couches, Shanahan is focused on something that's way more immediate. Something that doesn't require Green Bay to blink. One call, one moment, one play that makes a whole stadium go quiet for half a beat before it hits. Because when pure talent isn't enough, when you're missing key pieces and the opponent has already shown they can put you in a box, that's when the game turns into chess. That's when the details matter more than the volume. That's when Shanahan starts dipping into the part of his bag that no one can predict. Last Sunday against the Eagles, the 49ers pulled off the improbable by beating the defending champions. And a key swing in that win was a trick play Shanahan dialed up that changed the feel of the entire game. So it's only natural to wonder, does he have something like that ready for Seattle on Saturday? Apparently, Shanahan hadn't called that exact concept. A double reverse with 2 wide receivers that ends in a pass to the running back in 6 years, going all the way back to that wild 2019 regular season game against the Saints. The 48-46 shootout. The fact it shows up again now isn't random. That's the Shanahan pattern. He'll hold it, he'll hide it, then he'll unleash it when it can swing momentum in a way the defense can't recover from. We've seen him go there on the biggest stages too. In that second Super Bowl against the Chiefs, Shanahan called a trick play where Juwan Jennings threw a pass to Christian McCaffrey. And you don't put that on the call sheet unless you trust the guys touching the ball. Jennings is a former quarterback. He can throw. McCaffrey can throw too. Back in one of his first games as a 49er in 2022, he tossed a 34-yard touchdown pass to Brandon Ayuk. That's not theory. And here's why any of this matters. Seattle held this offense to 3 points 2 weeks ago. 3. I'm not repeating it for drama. I'm repeating it because it should bother everybody. The 49ers couldn't get anything going, and the one drive that felt like it might finally turn into points ended with an interception after Brock Purdy put the ball behind McCaffrey. That was basically the end of the game. So yeah, San Francisco has to be better this time. But it won't be easy. It's on the road, against a stout defense. Without Kittle, they did win in Week 1 in Seattle, with Kittle missing much of that game. But this is a different Seahawks team now. Number 1 seed, coming off a bye, walking into this with confidence and a pretty clear memory of how they suffocated the Niners offense in Week 18. So maybe some trickery is in order to make up for what's missing. Maybe you need controlled chaos to create clean looks. And sure, we hope Pearsall is back. But even if he suits up, it's fair to ask how close to full speed he can really be. Trick plays don't replace execution. They don't replace winning up front. But in the playoffs, against a division rival that just embarrassed your offense, you need an edge. You need one moment where Seattle's defenders are a half step late because they're trying to process something they didn't think was even possible in that situation. It worked against Philly. So the question that should stick with you is simple. Does Shanahan have something even bigger tucked away? Because if he flips the script one more time, this game can turn before Seattle even realizes what just happened. That's January football for the red and gold. Bodies hanging on, rumors buzzing, and a coach who refuses to walk into the postseason with his entire playbook exposed. Pearsall potentially changes spacing. The Rashan Gary chatter keeps the elite pass rush dream alive. And Shanahan just reminded everybody he can steal a possession with one unexpected call. None of it guarantees anything, but it's all opportunity. So I want to hear it, faithful. What gives you the most confidence for Saturday? And what's the one thing that keeps you up at night? Tap like, subscribe if you're riding with this playoff run, and drop your take in the comments, because this week is about to get loud.